Hey y'all, welcome back to my channel. We are continuing the Math Madness videos, and this is day 4 of our decimal series, and we are dividing decimals by decimals. So we have added and subtracted decimals, we have multiplied decimals, divided decimals by whole numbers, and today we're looking at dividing decimals by decimals. So I hope this is helping anybody at home, any parent, any student that is having trouble with some of their work that they're having to do at home. So remember to leave in the comments any topic, anything that you would like to see. I can teach 5 through 9 math and science. I have access to a language arts teacher, a art teacher, and a social studies teacher. So if you ever want anything new covered, just leave it in the comments below just to let me know what you would like to see and what I can do to help you. Don't forget that I do make a mistake on each video for my students to identify for extra credit, and teachers feel free to use it for your students as well. So let's get started. Okay, so we are dividing decimals by decimals. I don't have a work mat for this one as well because I just don't have the manipulatives for decimals. But here's my YouTube channel and here is my Instagram if you ever want to message me the mistake you find for my students, or if you want to suggest if you ever want to suggest content that you would like to see. Okay, so when dividing decimals, you're going to move the decimal in your divisor all the way to the right of the number. When you do this, make sure you count how many places you move it. Then you're going to move the decimal in your dividend to the right, the number of places that you have to move your decimal in your divisor. And you're going to add zeros as needed. And so here is where it is different because you're having to move the decimal in the divisor and in the dividend. When we were dividing by whole numbers, we just moved the decimal straight up in our dividend to our quotient. So then, once you do that, we will divide normally and bring your decimal straight up in your quotient from your dividend. And something I didn't share in the last video, but I wanted to remember to share with you in this one is when I divide, I tell my students, and even when I'm just dividing whole numbers, I tell them to remember the saying, and I found this on Pinterest and I loved it, and the kids love it. So it's really easy to remember and helps them remember the steps when they are dividing. But the saying is, does McDonald's serve cheeseburgers? So does McDonald's serve cheeseburgers? And that stands for divide, multiply, subtract, check, and then bring down. And I just love that saying. I love that. I think it's called an acronym for the English people, I believe. Not 100% sure, but I just love that. So let's start looking at examples. For this first one, we're going to divide 4 and 25 hundredths by 5 tenths. So just like we said in the notes, we're going to have to move our decimal in our divisor first. And remember, the divisor is what you're dividing by. So that's on the outside. So this kind of goes back to those bunny hops. We're going to move it one place here. So remember, we moved it 1. We had to move it all the way to the right. So now in our dividend, we're going to have to move it one place as well, which it ends up between the 2 and the 5. So we can go ahead and bring our decimal straight up in our quotient, because we moved it one place and it just goes straight up, just like when we were dividing whole number or dividing by whole numbers. So now we're actually just dividing by 5. And if you want to rewrite it, feel free to, just so it doesn't look so messy with all of the bunny hops. So 5 cannot go into 4, but 5 can go into 42 8 times. So that's divide and then multiply. So it does now McDonald's. Subtract serve. And then check, is 2 less than 5? Yes, so that it is okay to bring down. So cheese and then burgers. So now we just start over with the does McDonald's serve cheeseburgers again. So how many times can 5 go into 25? 5 times. 5 times 5 is 25. Subtract. And we get 0. So then we can stop. We don't need to add anything else. Okay, our next example. We're going to divide 3 and 25/100 by 5/10. And remember, when you're working with decimals, you can always go back to that lined paper, and I'm going to show you how we would do it here. Now, I'm just going to go ahead and move our decimals up here and then transfer it down to our lined paper. So remember, move it in your divisor first. So we moved it one place because we had to move it all the way to the right. And then we're going to move it in our dividend. So then we would bring it straight up. And since I moved it one place here, I have to move it one place here. So we really are dividing 32 and 5/10. And I'm just going to bring that decimal straight up. And notice that each place has its own line. And we're dividing it by 5. So can 5 go into 3? No. Can 5 go into 32? Yes, 6 times. So divide, multiply, subtract. Check, is 2 less than 5? Yes, so then it's okay to bring down. And then how many times can 5 go into 25? 5 times. 5 times 5 is 25. Subtract, and we get 0. So I don't need to add any zeros. I am finished with this problem. And so our quotient is 6 and 5/10. So let's look at another example. And I'm just going to write it on this example too. So we have 24/100 and we are dividing 16 and 8/10. So here I'm going to have to move it 2 places. So that's 2 bunny hops to get all the way to the right. So in our dividend, I'm going to have to move it 2 places. Notice that my decimal ends up here. We have that empty bunny hop here, so we do need to add that 0. And that's where you need to add the zeros if needed. So I'm going to transfer our problem to our line paper just to help us out. And our decimal did end up at the end, so we have to bring it straight up. So how many times can 24 go into 1? It can't, so we need to go to the 16. Can 24 go into 16? No. So then we need to look at, can 24 go into 168? And it can 7 times. Now I tell my students, you can go 7 times 4 is 28, 7 times 2 is 14, or you can come off to the side here and say 24 times 7 and do it to the side here. So 7 times 4 is 28, 7 times 2 is 14, plus 2 is 16, so that does give us 168, and we subtract and check, is 0 less than 24? Yes, but we are not finished. We still have to bring down that 0. A lot of my students are like, oh, I got 0 as a remainder, I'm finished. No, you still have to bring that 0 down because you still have to divide it as well. And you also have that blank spot before your decimal, and you can't just say 7 because let's look at what it really would be. How many times can 24 go into 0? It is okay to have 0 as your quotient. Remember that. A lot of kids don't think that that's possible, but you can. So 0 times 24 is 0. Subtract, and I get 0. And now I don't have anything else to bring down, so my quotient is 70. Let's look at one last example. So we're going to divide 36/100 into 90. So now we're dividing a whole number by a decimal, and I wanted to show you that. So I'm going to move it 2 places to the right. 1, 2, because I had to move it all the way to the right of my divisor. And so now I'm going to divide 90 by 36. So how many times can 36 go into 9? It can't, but 36 can go into 90 twice. So now I can come to the side and multiply 36 times 2, or you could do it in your problem as well. But a lot of my students like to come off to the side. So 2 times 3 is 6, plus 1 is 7. So that does give me 72. And I do have to subtract, so let's make that a 10 and that a 8. 10 subtract 2 is 8, and 8 subtract 7 is 1. So now I have 18 as my difference, and I need to check, is 18 less than 36? Yes, that's absolutely perfect. So I did end up with a remainder. Now remember, when you are dividing with decimals, you can add a decimal and a 0 and continue dividing. So then I'm going to bring that straight down, and let's go ahead and move our decimal up in our divisor, or in our quotient, I'm sorry. So now, how many times can 36 go into 180? So let's try 5. And then we can come to the side and multiply by 5. 5 times 6 is 30, and 5 times 3 is 15, plus 3 is 18. So that is 180. And we subtract, and we get 0. So then we don't need to add another 0. We have already found our quotient. So 90 divided by 36/100 is 2 5/10. Thank you all for watching. I hope that this helped you all when you are dividing decimals by decimals. Don't forget, my students can email me or message me the mistake that they found in my video for extra credit. But I hope that you all enjoyed this. Let me know if you all want any other content taught, or a little mini lesson on any other content. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and to hit that red subscribe button so you can keep up with any available video to help you with your lessons at home. So we will see you next time. Bye, y'all.